Hey, family. This is Jermaine Thomas, A.K.A. the Professor, with another episode of Sunday School Live. Thank you for tuning in and tracking with us here on Goma. I just want to send a special shout out to our Goma family as a whole, particularly to Pastor Mike and Dr. Catherine Toon, who come on earlier in the day. Take the opportunity to like, share, and take the opportunity to comment and let us know where you are watching us from. We are on a new episode series. We completed a episode series, episode 20. So take the opportunity to check that out. Was exploring and talking about our human existence, the core of our human existence, the reality of that, and looking at that from various points and perspectives and schools of thought with respect to, what is it to our human existence? Did we just evolve from monkeys and apes, or are we something much more? Are we just the sum of our parts, evolved from one cell amoebas? So that was an exciting series, and as in all our series, I believe since day one. Now that's my opinion. You may take another opinion and take on that. Listen, even criticism is accepted here. This is a thinking show, a questioning show. This is not necessarily put a stake in the ground and die on a hill show. If there's any hill that I'm willing to die on, it's on the hill of that love is universal in nature, in purpose and cause and service to in and for us all. It should flow through us all. Now, I argue and down that hill all day long. Everything else is subject to our perspectives, our experiences thereof. And so we're going to talk about a subject that's kind of out there. And if you, like me, who hang out on the fringes of Christianity, they say all the good fruit is out there, out on the limb. So, and so topics and discussions like this, you hear a lot of talk and discussions around immortality. It is a part of our Christian theme and narrative with respect to the resurrection of Christ. The body of resurrection for us, the dead in the living. A lot of our Christian themes and discussions address or touch some way, form, or fashion on the topic of immortality. When we even look through the Old Testament accounts, there's this aspects of people living for long lives of time. And then there is the cultural aspects and discussions and topics about immortality that is not necessarily indicative of any particular faith, if you will, but just a particular context of thought culturally. In this discussion, myths around that, a lot of our mythology speaks to that. The immortals and comics. We love this stuff, man. We love this stuff, the mythology. At least I do. But I know culturally it's still selling. Look at the Marvel industry. The Marvel universe is selling like hotcakes, and all the movies and series of movies that they produce. So there's something in us that yearns for this stuff. Whether we often talk about it or not. And so we're going to dive into this discourse and lecture series and talk about immortality. Is that a reality for us as Christians, or is that a reality for us as humanity as a whole? Where does this idea and notion to live forever, really come from? Should we want to live forever? Who wants to live forever? Or the other question could be, who wants to die? And so death is definitely one of those taboo subjects. And as a social worker, we had to take, a course in study on, aging and dying, because that's an aspect that happens, in our culture. And definitely coming through what we went through with COVID and the epidemic, and the things that happened there. So definitely, death is at the foreconscious of the minds of a lot of people. And so there's right now politically in the social circles, in the political arena, about the vaccine and the push for it and information on it and awareness on it because of the deaths and variants and things like that. So sometimes death itself, facing it or facing conversations around it, is it reminds us of our own mortality, our own capacity not to necessarily control things. There's some security in having control. We want to control things. We want to have a sense of certainty, and death interrupts that. It interrupts this notion and idea of certainty. And so, and Pastor Mike did a awesome series a while back on grieving, grace and grieving. And that was really, really good. And I'll probably suggest that again, to revisit that, even as we talk about this and as we have this discussion and conversation, from various schools of thought. We look at it philosophically, scientifically, religiously, and look at thoughts and perspectives and have the conversations. And as I always do, I would like to bring in my subject experts to help us drive this commentary and dialogue along the way. And so let's pivot here a little bit, and I want to give some definition. And so the sources and resources that I'm using today would be from Britannica, and I do have a subject expert video clip ready for you guys, and I'll probably play that more so at the tail end, of our dialogue and our discussion. But immortality, can we live forever? Even for myself, I've been having a few discussions and kind of like some debates philosophically, on the idea of immortality. In discussion with this particular person on social media, Facebook in particular, we had a really robust discussion. And for this person, I wanted to expand the idea and notion around immortality and the prospects and the possibility of it. And so, and I wanted to, because a lot of times we get into the strange and the unusual when we have these type of discussions, but is that a reality? What does it mean that Jesus conquered the death and the grave? What does that mean for the believer? What does that mean for Christians? What does that mean for humanity? Jesus conquering the grave. And so we'll dive into these things. We'll dive into these topics and discussions. But let's kind of lay a foundation here, definition wise. And so my source here, and I'm gonna read a few of these. It says that immortality in philosophy and religion, the indefinite continuation of the mental, spiritual, and physical existence of the individual human beings. In many philosophical religious traditions, immortality is specifically conceived as the continued existence of an immaterial soul or mind beyond the physical death of body. And so even in our Christian narrative, a Christian theme, we talk about this is what we get eternal life from, in the whole conversation of heaven, hell, where will you spend eternity? And so another aspect of looking at this too, it says that human beings seem always to have had some notion or shadowy double that survives the death of the body. But the idea of the soul as a mental entity with intellectual and moral qualities interacting with a physical organism, but capable of continuing after its dissolution, derives in Western thought from Plato and entered into Judaism during approximately the last century before the Common Era, thence in Christianity. And so there's this idea, this is where, the ideas and thoughts of the soul and eternal soul and the philosophical thoughts that were there, the traditional context and thinking that was there that surrounded Jewish culture that filtered into that society, that filtered even into Christian thinking. In existence, in attention with the idea of the resurrection, like I was saying earlier, the person conceived as indissoluble psychophysical unity. Christian thought gradually settled into a pattern that required both of these apparent divergent ideas. And so it's not just these ideas of immortality and looking at it in one aspect as far as the immaterial, our soul, our spirit, living forever, but also with respect to Jesus, the bodily resurrection, that whole conversation and thought and thinking and living forever in a physical body. This is Jesus who died. He was resurrected from the dead. He ate fish. Hey, put your hand in my side, doubting Thomas, and those type of things. But yet he walked through walls, as some of the gospel accounts writers tells us about these mythical experiences that Jesus had. And also speaking to the immortality aspect of this thing, or living forever in the immaterial, not just the physical, because I'm gonna get into the physical too, but the immaterial. You also see the Hebrew writers and the Gospels also write about the Mountain of Transfiguration. And so Moses and Elijah appears out of heaven, on this mountain, and Peter sees Elijah, Jesus, and Moses, and then God has this conversation with Peter. So this whole mythicism, this mystical, magical moment. I don't really like to use the word magic, but that's kind of how it's defined there in the gospel accounts about this encounter, and having, seen the dead patriarchs, of your forefathers, come back. Or when Jesus was raised from the dead, there was conversation and talk about how many of those that had slept before Christ, some of the patriarchs had got up and walked through the cities. So the zombie wasn't a zombie apocalypse. Some sort of zombie apocalypse occurred, during the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which again is outlined, within the context of the gospel accounts of Jesus's life and ministry. And so this conversation and this dialogue, when it comes to immortality, do we have to die in these type of questions, and search for these answers? And so as we consider this conversation, and as we consider this dialogue, which I believe would be very intriguing, I just want to be able to take this particular episode and just set the stage, for what we will be dialing into in this lecture series, and looking at this from various schools of thought. And then maybe somewhere in there, I will probably throw in a subjective opinion of my own. I try to be objective here as much as possible. And but I will want us to have, or leave from these conversations or from these lecture series, to have a healthy, robust perspective with respect to immortality and the aspects and the prospects of living forever. One of the other conversation pieces to this discussion is also what are the scientists saying? What are the community of futurists? There's futurists out there, philosophers, futurist scientists that are looking for ways for us to inevitably cheat death. We have all heard about the Fountain of Youth, and we have had movies that spoke to that tried to conceptualize the idea of the aspects of living forever, or you would have to be bitten by a vampire, right? To truly be an immortal. So these things are of legends, myths, that of human society and culture as a whole, and it transcends the idea or notions around immortality, or the conversations and thoughts and thinking around it, or the philosophy thereof transcends our religious context as well. There are many other faith practices, ancient faith practices, that considered the same thing, or the ideas of immortality. And so even the pyramids in Egypt, was the reason was to, ensure that that the king or the royal family, live substantively in the active life. And so there was this idea or this notion of eternity or living forever already embedded or encoded in a given ancient society. And so these conversations or these dialogues that we're having even here today or will attempt to have is not nothing new. And so and then you have the practical, right? It's saying, well, hey, there's nothing to this stuff about immortality, this pseudoscience stuff, this pseudo spiritual stuff. Listen, stop selling people a pipe dream, notion and idea about this thing about living forever. And who wants to live forever anyway? We live, we die. It's just what it is. We're here for a season, and we're gone for a season. So that's the sum of life. That's it. So we want to dive into that too. We don't want to exclude any thought and perspective and review and discussion in this lecture series as we dive into this topic. But I would say this, even in my own personal research, I'm amazed at some of the things that's out there. But then too, what I think about, because in some aspects, I'm a philosopher, I'm a novice, but I'm a philosopher at heart, and I love research, I love reading, I love technology. I can really get into this stuff. I get into a lot of the heady stuff. I'm not, a sports guy and sit and watch sports and Olympics and stuff like that. I would rather read a book or watch the National Geographic channel and learn some stuff that just wants to excite me. Just what you get out of excitement of watching a basketball game. And congratulations to the Bucks in their championship. If whoever's rooting for, I was rooting for the Bulls. Chicago is my hometown. My hometown love. I love my city. I live south of Chicago, so I will forever be a Bears fan. And so, a Bulls fan. Yeah, Bears fan, Bulls fan, Cubs, and White Sox fan. All in the same. And our Blackhawks and Chicago Fire. All our teams. Any teams in sports. But no. So in some of my research and study, I'm intrigued by the science community. But when you think about it, and you think about the prospects or the aspects of the advancement in technology, statistics does report in suggesting that people are living longer, and we're living longer because the access to healthcare, people are living long because of medical and technological advancement that is enhancing our life. Look at, I've said this before, look at with respect to COVID and this drive to find a cure, trade secrets. Now, companies, pharmaceutical companies, researchers, things like that, they do things in secret because there's trade secrets. They don't want another company to get, their research and study and things like that, so that they can have the first hand on things when it comes in the pharmaceutical industry. But they threw all that away and they worked together. You had universities, you have both private, public, and governmental institutions working hand in hand to bring about a virus. And so at such a accelerated rate, I think there's something unique to that. I think that model is not just going to, I don't think that that's going to go away right away, as things seem to come back to some sense of normality. I think that what happened here with the development in the production of this virus is going to spark something in the science community that if we can work together like this, let's continue to work together in other arenas. That's going to be for the betterment of humanity as a whole, for the greater good of humanity as a whole. So I'm intrigued by that. I love, like I said, I love science, I love research, and I love looking at that, and I love, peering into the future and seeing or imagining, if you will, or visualizing, if you will, what the future will look like. If you kind of look at certain trends, and so I look at certain trends and look at certain. There's almost like a, a, what they call it, amalgamation, if you will, patterns that will inevitably, if it's followed, would inevitably lead to certain advances. And I believe that we are at the precipice of a great technological revolution, in a leap into the future, if you will, given what's happening in technology. We got people flying in space now. We're going to have space vacations. Babe, let's take a space cruise instead of an ocean cruise. So the prospects and the things of that is limitless, I'm telling you. So we maybe even talk about stock options into some of these companies that are future forward looking into the future with respect to human advancement and for the well-being of humanity, traveling and medication. But anyway, that's a rabbit trail. And these are one of my passion topics to talk about when it comes to science. But when you have futurists, right? They when they gather together and they have conversations about ethics, right? Ethics, what will life look like if we had human and computer interface, human and AI interface, in part man, part machine, androids, with human anatomy and brains and things like that. So in looking at that, so when I say immortality, I like to expand the definition of immortality. I know we have a certain perspective or parameter and how we define that word immortality. And so with respect to the science and the advancement of technology, it's hard for me to say in a stake in the ground, black and white thing, say, no, there's no such thing as, this idea of living forever in a physical form or in a physical way. And so it's just a lot of things are just out there that is not, I ain't gonna say necessarily conclusive, but a lot of research that speaks to the possibility. And so speaking to the possibility, because people are living longer, because of the access, like I was saying earlier, to better healthcare, better medication, technological advancement in medication itself, in addressing certain ailments that have caused people to die. And so we're seeing, the things that will cause us to die early is being alleviated because of technology. And so it raises the prospects of this idea of immortality, if you will. And I just want us to just expand that definition of immortality and not just looking at it as an immaterial immortality, but a physical one as well, and not just base it on spirituality, because your mind, like a mind over matter type of thing, and then I'm going to live forever because my mind said so. But I think that when you consider, like I'm saying now about the medical technology and advancement science, and looking at, they're having discussions and ethic discussions about, these future moments that could possibly be in our future, in some maybe 20 to 10 to 15 years from now, that we will be living longer and longer and longer, and somebody finding the secret to the fountain of life, if you will. I know that is a lot to take in, and a lot to ponder when it comes to this discussion and having the discussion about immortality, if you will. But this a discussion that's being had, is being talked about and being considered. And so I want to bring up a subject expert, like I said, in a clip that kind of speaks into that. It talks about the prospects of living forever. And so we will, in the next episodes to come, so stay tuned, you guys, stay tuned, stay plugged with us as we dive more substantively into this discourse in this lecture series on immortality and can we live forever. So hold on, let me bring up my subject expert and we'll have some more commentary and then we'll land this plane, guys. Hold on.
Would you like to live forever? Though it may sound straight out of a science fiction movie, futurists believe technology could help make this possible. In fact, death might become a thing of the past in as early as 2050. A combination of genetic engineering, artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality, and brain interfaces could give birth to a deathless world. When people talk about extending human life beyond what is currently possible, they tend to fall into two categories: immortalists or health spanners. Health spanners are not that interested in becoming a cyborg. Some say that they want to conquer and cure aging using medical technology. Think of it as the quest for eternal youth. Up until around 1800, the average global life expectancy might have been between 30 and 40. Around the 1840s, we started to see a dramatic rise in life expectancy, with today's global life expectancy currently floating around 72 years. Accelerating technological, medical, and economic progress helped to increase life expectancy as fewer people were dying early from disease, conflict, famine, and natural disasters. However, there is evidence that lifespan, the age it is possible to live to, has not changed by much over time. In fact, one study found that the average life expectancy of a wealthy male ancient Roman was 71, almost the same as today's average. Others argue that if we eliminated all disease, the average lifespan would extend only into the 90s. To live longer, we'd have to slow aging itself. And this is what health spanners are aiming for. They imagine a world where 80 is the new 20, and people live to 200 or beyond. To do this, we would need to stop or stall the process of cell aging, called senescence. This is no easy task. Researchers do not yet have the full picture of what drives senescence. Nevertheless, scientists are working to understand and reverse engineer the process of senescence at the molecular level. Age could become just a number. However, this path towards life extension will only get us so far. If we want eternal life, we are going to have to do something more extreme. Immortalists eventually want to merge humans with technology, embracing transhumanism. There are potentially three paths to living forever: renewing your body using genetic engineering, living in android bodies, or living in a virtual world. Futurists like Dr. Ian Pearson have argued that by using the power of technology, humanity might be able to merge our minds with machines, making our bodies obsolete. He also argues that we could see this technology as early as 2050. First, in this future world, damaged or aging body parts would simply be replaced with more resilient prosthetics. Organs could be 3D printed on demand. Researchers from leading universities like Tel Aviv University and Wake Forest University have already demonstrated that it is possible to print functioning organs. Bionic body parts would make you more than human. Secondly, even if your body was damaged beyond repair, it wouldn't be a problem. Your mind would be already uploaded to the cloud. Like in the Netflix science fiction show Altered Carbon, humans may eventually be able to upload their digital brains to humanoid robotic avatars or new 3D printed human bodies. Humans might switch to different humanoid bodies after a certain period of time, the same way you might buy a new car with new features. This would make death obsolete. Elon Musk's Neuralink hopes to create one of the first crucial steps towards downloading the human mind to a computer. If the company is able to deliver on its bold promises, this Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires could allow us to communicate with computers, interact with smart devices, download content into our brains, and eventually download our own brains into computers. Humans could potentially achieve AI symbiosis. Finally, a virtual world could be created to host your new downloadable mind. In this scenario, right before you passed away, your mind would be downloaded to a server that hosts a massive virtual world. Here you could live in this new virtual reality. The act of death would be the process of transferring your mind to a computer. Though there are plenty of exciting technologies out there that could eventually bring us into this deathless future, we will have a lot of hurdles before we get there. For example, we do have brain interface technology. However, for us to download our brains effectively, we would need to have more advanced brain mapping technologies and see huge advancements in synthetic neurons and nanotechnology. We have a better chance of extending our lives than making ourselves immortal. Do you think humans will extend our life expectancy extensively? Will immortality be attainable?
Wow, right? Will immortality be attainable? And so this is why when I have discussions or debates, if you will, on the aspects or the philosophy of immortality, it's hard to say no, that immortality, that you live and you just die, and then that's just it. When you consider so much of the research and the science out there, and I talked about what is it to the core of our human existence in our last episode series, in episode 20, part 1, 2, and 3. We looked at, and especially when I uploaded some of our subject experts, our clips, to add to the discussion. One of the things that I showed was research around near-death experiences, and the research that's going into that, that's going into the near-death experiences and bringing people back. And so I know people who work in the medical industry who deal with patients, and where patients code and they use I'm getting mixed in my words. Anyway, the heart machine, I can't even pronounce the words, and to shock the body and shock people back to life. And so we know that there's electrical pulse that we give off. And so we've had technology where we're normally, if somebody went into a cardiac arrest and didn't know CPR in some of the ancient days, you know what I mean? Or it didn't know about CPR. And now we know with CPR and in that type of just something practical, and using CPR to extend a person's life, or these machines that could deliver electric shock back into the body to get the heart back to pumping, and things like that. So we're seeing the research in that, this bringing not just people back to life, but also this idea about this other realm of reality that we coexist in, in our Christian theme, or our Christian, a part of our Christian narrative. We talk about that. We say spirit realm, in the spirit world. None of us have any conclusive ideas about that, but we seem to be very versed and experts about spirit realm and interacting with it. We have books and series on it. People giving their perspectives from their own personal experiences, to shape these whole discussions. And we sometimes come across as if we're experts about what we really declare about the angels, demons, and all those things that happen in the spirit realm and spirit reality. And also, I was talking with a brother, and again, expanding our definition on immortality. I said, what if, and just getting him to see, to expand this idea or definition of immortality. It was like, because we're such creatures of habit, we're such a technological involved world, our smartphones, smart technology, it learns us. It learns our patterns, our habits. We can have conversations and talks, and then you look down at your phone, and then there's an advertisement for the very thing that you're talking about. And so, let's just say all of this personal data that's being stored up. And so there's debates and issues about that with respect to these companies and our privacy. Is there really privacy? And so taking that technology and uploading it into like like an urn, right? You had a smart urn, where you put the ashes of a loved one, and then you can talk, you can interact, because we especially merged with AI technology, these they know us, these algorithms, they know us and fix to us. And so you can talk to an urn and as if you were talking to a relative. And so, there's the possibility of technology that's endless in that expands this notion and idea of immortality in that regard, philosophically speaking, not necessarily physically living forever. Now, is that possible? Anything is possible. Living physically forever. Does our mind and our thinking play a lot into our own physical health and longevity in life? I believe so. There's research, there's data that affirms that. But also, too, in having the discussion about immortality as we dive into this, the social worker in me is incumbent upon me to also talk about aging, life expectancy, lifespan, in understanding and preparing ourselves. I'm going to live forever. So, people being so, to these extremes. I'm living forever, don't have no life insurance, don't take out no life insurance, don't take care of themselves physically, and don't, commit to those things. But yeah, I think that our perceptions of life and our perceptions and our awareness of life, even to that of our own immortality or mortality, if you will, kind of coexistence. It does create a certain enigma there, if you will, with respect to living forever in a physical body. And so we say that Jesus lives forever, that he took on his physical form, but he ascended into heaven. And so if there is the reality to living forever, then Jesus would be the first human to live forever, right? But he's living forever in heaven. So these are, again, our Christian narrative and conversations that we believe in or have had aspects of that tradition in our thinking or in our narrative. And so does the prospect of living forever physically, is there aspects or prospects of that happening? I believe yes, in regards to that. But yeah, our thinking also plays a part into our physical health and wealth, and our physical health and well-being. Dr. Carolyn Leaf says that 80% of the disease that starts in the body starts in the mind by our thinking. And how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive our lives. So if I'm here just to live to die, and that just becomes a part of my belief system, if you will. So aspects of discussions about immortality is like, whatever, dude. We here, we get old, and we die, and that's it. But could it be much more than that? And so we're looking at in our clip that I showed that there are presently right now technology research that's going on. There's what if we could hibernate like bears do, right? Slow down the heart rate. We go into like a stasis state, so this was all the rave with Michael Jackson and get into this cryo machine and preserving the body, and then one day we can have a cure. A lot of our movies, Demolition Man spoke to that. put these people in a cryogenic type state, a stasis state, and then they wake up. Or space travel. There was a particular movie, I can't think of the movie. And so these people was on this like space station thing, and they were in stasis. And the only two to survive some accident happened, and only two were able to survive or come out of the stasis and things like that. So again, sometimes art imitating life is speaking to some aspect of research that's already current or out there, that's been exploring this. We don't have these type of discussions and topics in Christendom. In mainstream Christendom, popular Christianity, is more so live for God. Be a good Christian. If not, then go to hell. That's typically what we talk about in popular Christianity, or who's the current hot discussion of the day, Lil Nas X and all his stuff that's going on. And that's typically how we have those type of discourses in popular Christianity. And so topics and discussions about immortality typically happens in labs, research centers, and among philosophical communities, not necessarily in faith spaces. But we do have people in our faith spaces that are have a resurrection ministry, right? That they actually go pray, for people and resurrect people from the dead. And so there's actually a ministry that's geared toward that. And so maybe I'll probably reach out to that brother that's over that ministry, maybe bring them in and have some discussions and some questions maybe, in the success in their ministry in seeing people being raised from the dead. Because the scripture says the same power that raised Jesus from the dead dwells also in your mortal bodies and shall quicken you. And so what do we do with that? So what do we do with those scriptures? But yet we go to funerals at Christian churches. And so what do we do with that, this idea of immortality in the face of mortality? And I think that having a healthy, robust perspective, right, in this discourse, I hope to have somewhere in there that something I say or share during the course of this lecture series would empower you, encourage you, but more importantly, challenge you to think. As I've always stated before, this is not an answer show. This is a thinking show. And so hence we have Sunday School Live with your host, Jermaine Thomas, A.K.A. the Professor. And so I want to thank you guys for tracking with us here at Sunday School Live. And if there's something that I've shared or stated that piqued your interest, please take the opportunity to like, share. I see Connie, thank you for tuning in and tracking with us as you always have, and others that will watch the replay. Also, listen, there's some things I'm endeavoring to do ministry-wise, and so if it's upon you to do so, please take the opportunity to sow into what we're doing here at Sunday School Live, and I would definitely share what we're doing with those resources. I've been talking about podcasts, and so I'm thinking about doing a podcast called Sunday School After Dark. And so it'd be more of a substantive, robust, kind of let my head down type discussion, very adult-driven content, and really just driving to the heart of things, the taboo subjects as well within our Christian context, and really talk about some really hard issues, or just things that's happening, trends we see within the Christian church, body of Christ, and just have really substantive discourse in topics about that. Nothing that you would necessarily bring to a public forum like this. With maybe some R rating attributed to that. But take the opportunity to sow. I'm also an elder to Ambassador of the Kingdom Ministries, and there's a lot of resources and things that we have there. So check them out. So there's some books that AOTK Ministry produced, like I said, it's a team ministry. that we do. That's my first love, and so I'm always showing support for them. Understanding the will of God, citizenship, AOTKM. You can look up the website yourself. I'll probably put it in the comments section as well. Follow us on YouTube. And there's more exciting things that we're looking to unveil and unpack here at Sunday School Live, and bring on some more guests and change up the format a little bit and bring on some guests and host some guests here and there to have the discussions, because I do want to get into some of the taboo subjects like what we're talking about today about immortality, and other discussions and discourses to have here, on this show. But thank you for tracking with us. Shout out to my Goma family as a whole. Again, take the opportunity to click the like and share button and share Goma. Share this page on your page and with your community. If you're getting something out of these discussions and you're getting something out of the content that's here on Goma, take the opportunity to share that with your friends and family in your Facebook connection. We'll greatly appreciate it here at Goma. Again, this is Jermaine Thomas, A.K.A. the Professor. We come here live on Facebook and on YouTube. So you can catch us on YouTube and you can catch us here on Facebook Live, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. So a special shout out again to Pastor Mike, Dr. Catherine Toon, and to our entire Goma family that's on the lineup there. God bless you, and thank you guys